Right. What we have today is a very simple topic, okay? Okay, right. We are interested in looking at the context of childhood, right? What do we mean by context? What is meant by the word context? What is a context?
Meaning. Specific meaning.
Specific meaning?
Yeah. No.
Okay. You want to expand?
Specific meaning. He's given it.
Yeah, everything that it involves.
What is a context? What does it mean? When we say context, what do we mean?
In summary, relevant. What happens in relation to.
Yeah, given the reader the context of what you mean. I know what I need to say. But
Okay.
It's not coming out.
Let's say it then.
It's not coming out. I can't.
I'd say what it involves, what's included, what it's about.
Giving the reader an understanding of what you're trying to describe.
Right? Do you want to search for the term?
Or you can just give us a clue.
No. I'm not going to give you a clue yet. Let's search for the term together. What does context mean?
Talking in reference to childhood.
That's our key term
Things that
today.
influence childhood.
What?
Things that influence childhood.
Things that influence childhood. Like what?
Social, cultural. Says on Google.
Okay.
Lines, obviously.
You're on the right lines, right? You want to expand. Who wants to expand on what Kim has said?
Specific area.
Specific area.
What childhood means.
The circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea.
Circumstances, I'll take that one. Okay? So circumstances which form childhood. What are those circumstances? That's what we're interested in today, okay? Context of childhood, circumstances of childhood. Okay, right. Now, this is, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to look at. The first thing we're going to look at today is the child's bio-ecological context. I think some of you may be familiar with ecological context, am I right? Ecological, have you looked at the ecological context of childhood? Which theorist is it? Ecological systems theory. Bronfenbrenner, yes. So when he started off with, that was 1979, his publication on human development. He started off looking at the ecological framework of childhood, the ecological context. But over the years, he developed the theory further to include the biological factors, because the ecological framework only looked at the ecology minus biological factors. So when he reconsidered his theory, he thought, oh, left another important factor that affects a child's development. Therefore, the factor that he came up with was the biological factors, and hence we now have what is known as the bio-ecological systems theory. That's what it is called. Right, the other thing we're going to look at is the current cultural context affecting the lives of children and their families and communities. Now, what we'll need to do is we need to try and define culture. What is your understanding of culture? Because culture is a noun, and cultural is the adjective that describes a noun, right? So what does culture mean? Before we go on to what is cultural, we need to understand what culture means. What's your understanding of culture?
Background, religion, upbringing.
Yes. Background, religion, upbringing. What else? Beliefs. So all that, those are examples of culture. So what do we define culture as? You've given me examples, which are very correct. Now, what is the definition of culture? From the examples that have been given, what do you deduce culture to mean? What is it?
Distinctive patterns of beliefs that are shared by a group of people.
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. Right, okay, so that's culture. So we're looking at cultural context affecting, so distinct patterns affecting, the distinct patterns of beliefs or way of life affecting the lives of children and their families and communities. So what are those and how do they affect these children? We're not only interested in what they are, but we're interested also in how they do affect children in their development, or children in their childhood. And then the next thing that we are going to attempt to look at is the child, the family, the school, the community, and national factors affecting practice in the sector. Now our sector is broad, right? It's childhood education and care, right? So we are looking at settings, schools, and such other places. So what are those child, family, school, community, and national factors affecting practice in the sector? The fourth thing that we are attempting to look at today is the current economic context affecting the lives of children and their families and communities. Now, the reason why we are trying to look at these things is because they are very, very relevant to most of the current issues you are going to be looking at. So all you are going to then have to do is attempt to make links between your current issue and any of these factors. I'm not saying you must include all the factors we are looking at today. Neither am I saying you must include all the content that we are going to cover today. It's up to you to choose what you think is relevant to what you're going to be writing about. Okay. Right, the other thing I wanted to mention is, before I forget, you know the conversations we're going to have regarding your current issue. There is a date on your program calendar. It says current issue interview or something to that effect. Now that date, that's the latest you can see me regarding your current issue. If you feel like you're confident in your topic and you want to crack on with what you're doing, you can see me earlier than that and we can discuss your current issue. Or alternatively, you can send me an email and again give you guidance via email. So either way, do not wait for the date. You can actually start working on your assignment, but I need to have a conversation with you regarding your current issue and how we intend to meet the learning outcomes of the module with that particular current issue. That's the only reason why we need to have that conversation. Okay, right. Right, okay. Right, okay, so the first section is going to look at the child's bio-ecological context, theoretical perspectives. So we're going to look at the theories which are relevant to this particular section. And obviously you have mentioned Bronfenbrenner, a very important theorist when it comes to that. Okay, right, Bronfenbrenner, okay? Now Bronfenbrenner characterized human development as existing in systems, okay? So you have the immediate environment of the child. What is it called? Do you remember? The immediate environment of the child. Or just give me examples of what the immediate environment of the child. You have the child in the center. So what is that immediate environment surrounding the child?
Usually family.
Family, yes. And what is it called?
Relations.
Bronfenbrenner had special
Oh.
labels of those systems. Do you remember?
I remember when this one, so I don't know.
Okay.
First me.
Microsystem.
Yes. So the immediate environment surrounding the child, the one with which the child has direct interaction, is called a microsystem. We're going to look at the other systems surrounding the child. So you have the family, and then you have the community, and the school, and you go broader, broader, and broader. We are going to look at how all those systems have an impact on the child and childhood. Now, Bronfenbrenner views human development as systemic, i.e. existing in systems. So the child themselves is a system of a range of different aspects which make up a child. If we said to you, what is it that make up a child? What is it that constitutes a child? All those aspects form a system, and they work very well together to enable the child to function as a child and to develop as a child. And then human development is a transactional process. What we're saying there is, for a human being to develop, a human being of any age to develop, they have to be in interaction with or communication with, or they have to be in contact with their environment, both the immediate and that environment which is even away from where they are. For example, the government is not in the child's family, but the decisions the government make, right, affect the child. Whatever happens at Westminster, when it comes to children, say they want to come up with a policy and so on and so forth, even if the child will never get to Westminster, they will still be affected by what's decided over there. So that's a broader system or environment which the child has no contact with, no immediate contact with or direct contact with, but still having an impact on the child. Okay? But what Bronfenbrenner is saying is there is a transaction that is happening between the child and their environment, whether it's the immediate environment or that environment which is far away from the child but still having an impact on the child. There is a transaction. The child impacts on the environment and the environment impacts on the child. Okay? For example, in the family, how you treat the child is going to have an impact on how the child develops, right? So that is in the direction of the child. It's coming from the family. For example, it's coming from the mother or from the father, or it's coming from the sisters, from the brothers. Whatever is coming from that family going to the child, whether it's food or socialization, everything else, it doesn't have to be physical things that are coming from the family. It's having an impact on the child, okay? However, the child's existence or presence within that family also is having an impact on the family. The family has to be aware that the child is there. The family has to understand what it needs to do because the child is there. So the presence of the child will have an impact on, for example, sleeping patterns, okay? If you thought you have a certain sleeping pattern before the child arrives, you then have to change it if the child arrives, right? When the child arrives, you may have to change it. You may find yourself awake at 1:30 a.m. because the child is crying, or they need other things, or they're in discomfort. So the child's presence has made you modify your patterns of life, right? For example, if I may use Rebecca's example, okay, the child is there, so you have to adapt when you have to leave college, right? Because the child has to be picked up. That adaptation means there's an impact that is coming from the child to the parent. The parent has to adapt how they are going to go about their business. You can no longer do whatever you used to do before the child arrives, right? So what it means is there's a two-way communication, two-way interaction that is happening between the child and the family. The child affects the family affects the child. That's what we are calling a transactional process. There's something that is exchanging, hence, or something that is exchanging lives between the two entities, between the child and the family. So it is two-way. Another word that is used is it's bidirectional. Impact is bidirectional, i.e. it goes in both directions, right? In the direction of the parents and then in the direction of the child. And then you have the fourth point here. An individual's development is influenced by interactions with various aspects and spheres, i.e. systems of their environment. Now, while the child is being affected by what's happening within the family, that's not the only thing that is happening there. There's a whole host of things that is happening, very complex systemic workings that are happening there, right? What the government is deciding, as we said earlier on, is having an impact on the child. What the child gets at the GPs, for example, in terms of immunization and stuff like that, is having an impact on the child's health, right? And then the child, at some point, is with the child minder. What happens within the child minder's context has an impact on the child. And that child, wherever they go as well, is having an impact on what everyone is doing. Okay? When the government says, oh, let's stop what we're doing and let's think of, okay, what legislation can we come up with in order to protect vulnerable children? The child has been born, say, in Altrincham, right? They're not at Westminster. But their existence is having an impact on what is happening over there. There's debate going on, right? Let's give children rights, or let's make sure that all children are immunized. Let's make sure that all information that needs to be there on the NHS website is there. Why? Because of that child who has been born, say, in Stockport, whom the government will probably never meet. But their awareness of the existence of this child makes the government stop and focus on the child. That's why you have children's ministers all the time. The reason why we are having this children's minister is because there's a child that has been born somewhere that needs a minister who focuses on the welfare of this child, who focuses on the needs of the child. Or Children Act 2004. Let's have Children Act. What is happening there? Oh, Victoria Klimbe has been victimized and she's sadly passed away. What happened in the house of Victoria Klimbe has an impact, a national impact. It has an impact on what is happening in Parliament. And it also has an impact on what's happening to social workers, because some social workers had to lose their jobs just because of that one child. Okay? So what we're saying there is there are ramifications as a result of a child's existence. Okay? And then you think of the United Nations, 1989. Sit down and think, okay, there are children all over the world. They don't have rights, some of them. Others have rights, but those rights are not always respected. What do we do? So you have people sit down, different countries being represented by people. Why? Because of this child. What do we come up with? The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Why? Because of a child that's been born probably in Burundi somewhere, where all these officials at the UN will never get to, right? But they still have to consider this child. What is happening there is because the child is important and there's an impact on what we do every day. Okay? And that impact is two-way. There's an impact on the child, there's an impact on different entities depending on where we are, whether it's at global level, community level, or national level. Right? Community level, we're thinking of, okay, we had sure start centers which are sadly being reduced. But why did we come up with sure start centers? It's because of that child. Okay? So we're going to have a look at all this. All right. Okay. Bronfenbrenner's model, I borrowed it from somewhere. Okay. So that's a visualization of Bronfenbrenner's bio-ecological systems theory. Okay. Now, when he started this theory, at the beginning in 1989. Oh, 79. Okay. Right. 1979, Bronfenbrenner comes up with the theory, ecological systems theory. And then he updates it over time. And it ends up being called bio-ecological systems. So now, when it was updated, it became known as the PPCT model. The first P stands for person. The second P stands for process. Then the C stands for context. And T stands for time. And what Bronfenbrenner is proposing is that for a child to develop effectively, or otherwise, they are affected by all these factors, right? They're affected by the first P, affected by the second P, affected by the C, and affected by the T. Okay, I'll talk you through the four aspects in this bio-ecological framework. So you have the person there. The person is the individual child, right? There are child factors which impact on the child's development. The child's genes, for example, those are internal to the child, right? They have an impact on how the child develops, okay? The IQ, the child's intelligence, has an impact on how they develop. Remember the 5 areas of development, what are they? Pyros.
Physical, intellectual, emotional, language, social.
That was too quick. Okay, let's start with P. Physical, right? I, intellectual. L, language, yes. E, emotional. And S, social, right? So the child is developing in different domains. The word domain is, just complicating the word areas, different areas. The child is developing in different areas, right? So what is happening there is we're saying, okay, a child's physical, intellectual, language, emotional, and social development are affected by person factors, right? These are individual factors. So you have physical characteristics, ability to handle stress and emotion, but different children handle stress differently. At some point in their lives, they're going to be stressed, right? Maybe there's too much heat and it stresses the child, and they're in discomfort and they cry. That has an impact on the child. How the child processes it, okay, and how they handle all these stresses will have an impact on how they develop, okay? And then you have issues to do with ability to, we've talked about ability to handle stress and emotions, and their personality as well, right? So you have different personalities, okay? The child's personality has an impact on how they develop as well. So these are the person factors. We're going to look at them in greater detail. That's the first P. The next P is the process, right? Now, the process has to do with the child's interaction, not only with people, but with objects. When a child gets into a setting, right, you just leave the child on their own, and they have objects, toys, whatever they can see, spoons, pens, crayons. What do? What are your observations of children around or surrounded by objects? What do children do?
Throw them.
Okay?
Throw them.
Throw, yeah, they can throw them. What else can they do? Explore them. Sometimes they want to taste them. Yeah? All that is part of a child's development. So if you just sit back and relax and observe a child interacting with their environment, you see a lot that happens, right? There's what is known as the stimulus response theory. Are you aware of it? Stimulus response.
I have heard of it,
Right? So stimulus is something that stimulates an action or a reaction, right? If I lift this pen and, oh, if I just move like this, right? You are all, not all of you obviously, but some of you are following my movement, okay? So my movement becomes the stimulus, right? And how do you react to it? Your response to my movement is following me with your eyes, right? So that's the response. The stimulus is the movement, and your eyes moving along with me is the response, okay? If a child touches something that is very hot, what happens? Besides being burnt, how do they react? They cry. So the stimulus is the hot object or the fire. It stimulates a certain reaction. To stimulate is to trigger, right? To stimulate is to lead to something. So it leads to a certain reaction from a child. The child cries, right? The child sees the mother. The mother's been away at work or in college, and the mother comes. How does the child respond?
Usually they cry.
Do they cry?
Some of them do, yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's take crying as a response. So response is crying, right? So who is the stimulus there?
Mother.
The mother is the stimulus. Okay? And children, when they become more aware of their mother, sometimes they smile, right? In acknowledgement that mom is here. That's a sign of a child saying, I've missed you. Probably they cannot speak yet, but they're telling you they're happy to see you, they've missed you. You are the stimulus because you are stimulating, you're triggering, you're provoking a certain response from the child, and the child responds, hence stimulus response. Okay? So what we're saying there is the objects or the people can actually stimulate a response from the child, and the child responds a certain way. They may cry, they may laugh, they may smile, right? They may do all sorts of things. What we're saying is the child's behaviors have been provoked by something that is happening within their environment. Okay? So that's the second P. Interaction with objects, interaction with people, in a nutshell. So that's PP, and let's go on to C. Now I think most of you are familiar with the C. And when you see many people refer to Bronfenbrenner, it's as if this is the only thing that is happening. Yet it's not the only thing that's happening there, right? All this is also happening alongside that. Okay, so this is what we started with. And the context means the environment. The other word, in the context of this theory, context is synonymous with the environment. Yep. So you have the immediate environment. So say we have a child at the center. So this is our child, okay? At the center. Okay. So this is the immediate environment. Let me use a different color. So you have the child, and then immediate to the child, you have the family. And who is in the family?
Parents.
Parents, yes.
Or the siblings.
Siblings, yeah. Who else?
Grandparents.
Yep. If you live with grandparents, yes, they will have their grandparents as well. So anyone who is in immediate, in direct contact, in the immediate vicinity of the child is here. So just immediately outside the family, you have another layer. Okay? Now, who is here? Again, depending on the child.
Practitioners at nursery or school.
Excellent. Different color. Blue. So you have, it depends on the age of the child. So you have You may have the school, a childminder, okay? So the child has immediate contact with family, and they will also have some contact, direct contact with the school or the childminder. And then we go outside, right? Okay? What's outside the school?
That things like doctor, dentist.
Yeah. And all that forms what?
Support networks.
Okay. Support networks within the community, right? So, yeah, I'm happy with support networks as well. But these are support networks in the community, not in the family, because the family also forms part of support networks. But I understand what you mean. So you have your community here, right? So you have your microsystem. So that's micro means mini. Mini system, small system, right? So our micro, do I have black? Yeah. Oh, okay. Right, so right in the center is the child, and immediately there you have the microsystem. So the family, siblings, the parents, grandparents, they are in the microsystem. Okay? And then immediately, so here, now what follows here, what's called the mesosystem, is not exactly a system. It is the link between.
Is this the schools and nurseries?
Yes, so you have the link that's there between the family and the community. So you have a mesosystem here, okay?
So is that in between family and the school childminder, or is it the school childminder?
It's that connection between the two systems. Oh, you know, right? So that connection is called the mesosystem. And then you have the exosystem. All right? So that's the community. And then when you go national, right? So this is national now. We talked about the government, for example. So some of the some parts of the child's environment, you know, are not present where the child is. But what they do affects the child. Things like the economy, the politics, do affect the child, but they're not immediately there. So it's what is happening nationally, right? So that's that's the macro. Macro meaning the big system. Macro is big, micro is small. Right? So macro system is here. Now there's one thing that's missing from the diagram, and I know most texts miss that out, and that is called the Chrono System. It's not there, but it's there. Now, do you know what a chronometer is?
Something to do with time. Do you measure time?
Exactly. Well done. Actually, you'll get my book. And the new one that is coming out. Remind me when it's released.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Right. Chrono system is to do with the time. Now, when we talk about the time frame, we are talking about what is happening in the present and what has happened previously, historical events that have happened, which affect the child. The child was not there when these historical things happened. but somehow they may have an impact. For example, things that have happened historically, it may be, say in 2008, we had a credit crunch. That is an impact. In certain environments, wars that happen long before the child is born will have an impact on the child. Chrono System. Or mother gets divorced before the child is born. It's a historical event that happened before the child was born, but that will have an impact on how the child grows up, depending on which parent the child is going to go with. So anything that is happening within the time frames, normally, historically, we have an impact on the child. Are we still flowing together?
Just about.
Just about. Okay.
So you're saying anything that's happened in the past will have an
Anything that's
impact
happened before,
Yes.
before the child is born, but that affects the child.
Yes. Events happening in the past. What we're saying there is time frame has an impact. So that's the Chrono System. Time frame has an impact on the child. Mostly it's historical time frame, right? It can be the present. A child who is born in a year of severe drought may be impacted on, depending again on country. In certain countries, when there's a drought, you know there's a drought because there are food shortages and stuff like that, and that affects the child's nutrition, right? Certain nutritional elements that may miss from the child's diet when they're young may have an impact on their development. Certain malnutritions may lead to certain disabilities, for example, right? Again, that may be tied to a certain point in history or in a certain point in time that will have an impact on the child. Okay? Right? Okay, to move on. So, Chrono System, so that's the time, that's the Chrono System. Now, Chrono System, I don't know why it's put on its own, but certain books may actually include Chrono System under context. Right, but you can see why Chrono System is here on its own is because it's something that tends to happen in that has to do with the past. Okay, are we okay to move on?
Yeah. Jackie, is those fancy bottles on the bottom left?
Forgot my clicker in the staff room. All right. Now, person characteristics are subdivided into three components. These are so-called force characteristics, resource characteristics, and demand characteristics. Now, force characteristics have to do with individual differences in aspects like the temperament, motivation, persistence, and so on, right? These are so-called force characteristics. Why the word force is used is not very clear, but maybe you're thinking these aspects or characteristics make people behave a certain way, whether or not they like it. If you have a certain temperament, you will likely behave a certain way. You may not have control over how you behave. So that's mainly the reason why it's called force characteristic. And then you have resource characteristics. Now, the resources that you have at your disposal. It's strange that liabilities are actually considered resources, right? But yet liabilities and assets that influence the capacity of the organism. Now, the organism, that's how they are named, is the person that's being called an organism there. To engage effectively in processes that are happening within their context, right? So what is it that you have that enables you to engage effectively? Maybe good at talking, you may be good at making friends. All those are resources at your disposal. But you may also have some liabilities. For example, you may be short-tempered, for example. Right? You may find it difficult to interact with people. So those become your liabilities. Liabilities are hindrances, and resources are enablers. So you have enablers and hindrances.
Can you just explain that one again? Didn't quite get the resource. So it's things that you have that make you you. Is that
That enable you
enable?
to function effectively. Positive. So you have your positive attributes, but you also have your liabilities, things that may come between you and your positive functioning. Okay?
And one of the positive ones that you said, what was that?
Good at making friends. Or just good at speech. Some people are really good talkers. We can actually convince you to do something which you never thought you'd be able to do. Right? And then you have demand characteristics. Okay? Demand characteristics are those qualities of an individual which invite or discourage reactions from the social environment that can disrupt or foster adaptive processes. Now, what these refer to are the characteristics a person has which trigger certain reactions from people before they even talk to you, before they even know you, right? There's certain characteristics which just attract people towards people. But if we say to you, say you're strangers, complete strangers, and you say, oh, can you sit with whoever you want to sit with? There are certain things which are indescribable that will attract you to certain people before you even know them. They demand attention. Let's call it that. Those are characteristics which cry out, come and sit with me, come and sit with me, I'm friendly, and so on. Right? There was a couple, is it last year or early this year, thrown out of an aeroplane because they, quote unquote, they were smelly. Yep.
Oh wow.
Excuse me, sir, excuse me, madam. Other passengers are uncomfortable because of your smell. It actually happened. And this couple went on TV. You know, the last place you want to go to when you've been accused of not smelling nice is the TV. Because you go there and you embarrass yourself. Okay? If it was me, I would just go away quietly.
And have a shower.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you must make friendship with the shower. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. A shower and probably, you know, very cheap Asda or Aldi deodorant. Doesn't cost much, does it? I'll just go to Pound and get one. So next time you're not evicted from an aeroplane. It actually happened. And they went on TV and they're protesting. We don't smell, we smell nice. And I'm thinking, okay, I wouldn't do that if it were me. You can argue the ethics of doing that. Okay. So how someone smells is actually a demand characteristic, right? You can either attract people towards your table, or you can actually you either attract. What's the opposite of attract? Repel. You may have a repellent smell. Just saying. Okay? So, there's a range of, some people want to sit next to people who are well dressed. Demand characteristic. Right? Some people want to sit next to people who are who are good looking. Now, good looking is subjective, isn't it? everyone will find someone who considers them good looking. That's a demand characteristic, okay? There's a range of things that may actually cause people to want to sit with or to not want to sit with them. A range of things. Before a person has known you, that's very important when it comes to demand characteristics. So these characteristics are observable, right? These are things which people can see. So that's the person. Okay. Right. What's happening? Oh, brilliant. Process. What did we say process is?
Mechanisms of an individual environment.
I really like that. That's very improvising. Yeah, it's creative.
Object or person can cause a response.
Yes. Yep. Excellent. No, Hannah, you're correct as well.
I know it's on floor.
Yep. At least it shows you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were, I think in primary school, a test was, and so you used to have, we used to have displays on the wall. So you have your wall displays. And the teacher just decided to test us. And in the exam, it's the end of week test. We used to have end of week test. So in the exam, everything in the exam was on the wall. But no one got everything correct. Others actually failed to get anything correct. And then the teacher goes, oh, but it's on the wall. And they say, oh, you never told us to read it. Yeah. So when I eventually became a teacher, I was arguing against having wall displays. I said, what purpose do they serve if children are going to read them? Because you do not expend too much energy and money and time doing things people don't find useful. So if children are not going to be motivated to read what's on the wall, why would you test them? I've done that similar experiment with my degree students, not here, at Stockport. And when I'm at Stockport, I was saying, oh, Trafford, right. I've done the same experiment with students over at Stockport. And I asked questions to do with what is on the wall. Not deliberately, it was just a question I asked. And then one person says, oh, it's actually on the wall. But lots of people were actually getting it wrong, right? Maybe, I'm just saying maybe, children are better at interacting with their environment, objects in the environment, than we are, adults. I'm just saying maybe, is that correct? If you put a child in a room, they will touch everything, they will feel it, they will taste it, anything they find interesting. You don't find the same motivation in adults. Am I right?
You look a bit strange if you walk to the other side. You know what? Wait till next week.
I'm not suggesting you start touching things when you visit people. Okay, especially if you visit people's houses for the first time. Sit down, leave the remote alone, don't touch it. People, yeah, don't try to taste the remote, okay? Don't change people's channels. Some people are very sensitive, okay? Find them watching a sensitive channel. I don't know, it depends on cultural variations, right? In certain cultures, it's okay.
So they feel more control of things.
Yeah, it's okay. In other cultures, people actually don't like it. You get into the house and you start rearranging furniture. People get offended. Yeah, or you start washing dishes, and people are saying, "Oh, so you think we are not very organized or something like that?" I don't know. Is that a sensitive subject to some people? For a visitor to come and start washing dishes.
I mean, if you want to go wash the dishes, you're on more than welcome to
Yeah. So you're a good person to visit then. Oh, God. Anyway. Yeah. I don't know. Again, it depends on the relationship you have with people, right? It depends. Yeah. Did I tell you of a child who was crying on the plane because he wanted to sit in a seat someone else was occupying? I want to sit next to the window. That's the child crying. And he became loud. I want to sit next to the window. And this gentleman, now the parents are just watching this child crying. They're waiting for the gentleman to react. So the child's crying is the stimulus. And this gentleman has to vacate his seat, to leave it to the child. Now, seats that are next to the window, on this budget airline some of us fly in, you pay more to sit next to the window. Maybe that's 12 pounds. And then some random child just cries for your seat which you've paid 12 pounds for, and the parents just watch. He had to leave his seat for the child. Swap seat. And that is 12 pounds gone. Right, the moral of the story is, when you buy your air ticket, don't pay for the seat another child, pay it out. Well, you may be forced. No, I'm just saying that. No, you don't want to be nice to children. Are you not going to give it up?
Oh dear, maybe I'm
Yeah, it was quite, I think that was the highlight of the trip. It was a boring holiday. I thought this was exciting. Yeah. The only thing I didn't do was take pictures because it is not allowed. It was actually highlight. Yeah. So that was the child trying to have an interaction with the window. He actually enjoyed it because he was, drawing the blind open. I can see the blind, and he closes it. I can see, and just having fun. And this gentleman is annoyed. He said to give up his seat. Yeah, the parents are just saying, oh, thank you, bless you. Yeah. And the gentleman just said, whatever. Anyway, right. Context. So you have the immediate and more remote context. I'm not going to flog our dead horse. Are there any animal the right to this? No?
Not anymore.
Okay. So we're not going to flog the dead horse, are we? Right. Now, what I want you to do is, we have a task here. Carry out research on Google. You all have, are you all on Wi-Fi, college Wi-Fi?
No.
Do you have Wi-Fi? Yeah. Okay, good. Right, I want you to carry out research, and all I want you to find out is what these terms mean. We've tried to define them. Now I want you to find out what other authors think these terms mean: microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. If you may add Chrono System as well. Okay? How much time do you need?
Till 9. I'm joking.
Right, interact with objects and people around you.
Look online.
Yeah. You alright, Jason?
Yeah, it was really tired. Been a long day.
It is. Wednesday is very long. Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Always here. Never take a day off.
When are you playing this program?
Yeah, Thursday, 7:45. So like a short session.
People lost this.
Yeah.
You have.
It was a good weekend for you, that.
What?
It was a good weekend for Chelsea, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was one of the Wolves.
Yeah. Oh, Wolves are scared. Wolves always
Yeah.
get.